I'd like to call the advisory meeting for Monday, December 4th, 2023 to order. Roll call.
Ms. Madden.
Here.
Ms. Bourgeois could not be here. Ms. Charpentier.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Before we begin, I'd like to go ahead and remind everybody the purpose of the meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to add items to an agenda. The advisory committee of the board shall review the requested item or topic and ascertain whether the topic item is proper for placement on the board's agenda. The committee will consider the following. So number one, does the topic or item have an educational purpose and is it within actionable jurisdiction of the board? Question number two, is the topic or item for informational purposes only? Example, the item is not within the actionable jurisdiction of the board. And if so, will the board's meeting time be better served by dissemination of the information to the board outside of the meeting? Question three, is the topic or item covered by a policy or procedure of the board or law of the state of Louisiana, such that consideration of the topic would circumvent the policy, procedure, or law and or violate or interfere with the administrative process? Question four, is this a matter that should be properly referred to a standing committee of the board for consideration before referral to the full board? Question five, any other relevant factor that might be determinative of the decision to add a topic or item to the agenda. The decision of the advisory committee to deny a request to place an item or topic on the board's agenda shall be in writing, and this decision shall be made part of the school board record. So, with that being said, our item tonight for new business is to consider a request to revise policies ID, curriculum, IDA, Basic Instructional Program, IDBA, Sex Education, IFP, Supplementary Material Selection and Adoption. And we have Ms. Jamie Marlborough who's presenting these. Ms. Marlborough, please state your name and address for the record, and please remember you have a 10-minute speaking time.
Jamie Marlborough, 116 Sealess Lane, Lockport. I have a 9th grader that attends Central Lafourche High School. He's not in honors, he's in regular classes. He brought home this book, and a student actually reached out to me, and I'm no longer on the school board, and a student reached out to me with some very graphic material that came out of this book. And it shocked me wholeheartedly because I honestly believe, despite my differences with y'all, that would not be in something that you would be sending home with my child. I'd like to read some of it to you so you get an idea of what I'm talking about and why I put forward something the way that I did. I'd like to read the first one that was sent to me by a concerned student, and it said, I hope you love me half as much as I love you. I left her for a while, and when I came back, I saw that she had moved farther down between the rows where the cane would hide us better. She had taken off everything except for her brassiere and slip. I took off everything except for the heavy shirt, which I unbuttoned. Vivian raised her arms up and out to me as I lay down beside her. I lie on my side and touched her brown nipples with my finger. Then I leaned over and kissed each tenderly and raised up and looked at her. She was smiling at me. I went back and I passed my chin over each and I kissed each again and rubbed my chin over them. My beard must have been rough because I could feel her drawing away some. But when I looked at her, she was smiling again, and I smiled back at her. The passage goes onto the next page where they talk about doing it again. And we know it's inferred sex, but that's kind of graphic, starting to describe what's going into the sexual act. And although they may not speak of this in the classroom, the kids are sent home with the book in its entirety. Upon me asking and requesting, please pull the books, give the kids photocopies, I was told it's not feasible and it's not a monetary standpoint, so therefore the book would stand and stay in the classroom. There's a lot of other things I'd like to read to you, but I'm limited on time. But from this standpoint, the word nigger is used in a derogatory manner at least 13 times. Fucking, bastard, son of a bitch, pussy, coon, used in a derogatory manner, god damn it, chicken shit, nuts as in men's genitalias, ass, whorish, and shit are also used in this book. And the note that was sent home to me didn't give me an option to opt out. It actually said, and you've heard what I've had to say, while there are mild references to Grant and Vivian's sexual relationship, explicit and graphic details are excluded. I am sorry, but rubbing your tongue over some nipples is not graphic. That is graphic and it's not excluded. It's in the book that was sent home with my child. It goes on to say the one very vague sexual encounter between them is inferred by the reader based on the descriptions within the novel instead of being described in detail. No, there are parts of this book that may not say a vagina and a man's private part going into a woman, but it is describing in detail at some points. And it also goes into talk about how alcohol can impact a man's function in the bedroom. It also goes into talk about how stress can do the same. And it talks about, do you love me more than just in the bed? It's all here. I have it documented. I'll give you this paper. You guys can go and read it. I actually went and read the entire book myself. It takes away from the message that is positive in this book because it's throughout the book. Grant and Vivian's relationship is throughout the book. It's not just there. And furthering that, you guys have policies against sexual harassment and sexual misbehavior. I feel that the right of the student's been taken away because policy JCDE, sexual related school misconduct, reads no employee or student, either male or female, should be subject to unsolicited and unwelcome sexual overtures or conduct, either verbal or physical. Sexual misconduct does not refer to occasional compliments of socially acceptable nature. Sexual misconduct refers to behavior that is not welcome, that is personally offensive, and therefore interferes with the purposes of the employee and or student in the academic, extracurricular, and co-curricular atmosphere, but that does not rise to the level of sex discrimination or sexual misconduct as defined by Title IX, Part 106, Title 3 of the United States Code of Federal Regulation. Sexual misconduct includes any type of sexually coercive conduct, including but not limited to threats, comments, jokes, or overtures of sexual nature. Sexually explicit content in LPSD curriculum has made children in a school district uncomfortable in the learning environment. When the passage in the book was graphic, was shown to me, it was done by a student, as I had said. As adults, we do not need a child to tell us that it is starting puberty and having to wear a bra for the first time, that watching a video with male peers around that talks about running down the street in bras is uncomfortable, especially if it is a male teacher that assigned the video, or being taught about sexting and then quizzed on it in Quest. We as adults know that this sentence from 9th grade ELA book, her old pussy ain't no good, is derogatory to women and sexual in nature and can be considered sexual harassment. As the note was not transparent to the content and the children are to read this book and no note was sent home with an alternative book for us. This is just not okay. And there's so much I want to say to y'all. But what gets me is I have sat here with all of you. I've taken votes with all of you and I've listened to all of you talk about your faith, talk about wanting to protect children, wanting to take, these things aren't in our district. People, they're here. And it's not okay. It's not okay for my son to walk into a classroom with a human pride flag there, which he did, and I didn't make a big deal about it because I sat in that seat when Ms. Oliphant sat. There is things going on that are not in the control. So if we go and say, now, do I trust you? No, I don't. Despite me knowing your faith, despite me knowing how much you care about something, do I trust you? Absolutely not. My parental right has been taken away. I've had to have a conversation about sex with my son that was not warranted at this time in his life because of what he was exposed to and what we know he's going to be exposed to in this book. We have to have weekly conversations about what's here so we can make sure his behavior is in line with your policies, whereas this book sets a different precedent. It's just not okay. And I understand we want to teach kids something, but are we going to do it at the cost of selling their souls down the river? And I'm going to go on a limb and say most of you all did not know the content of what was in this book. And if y'all have sat down and read it, have any of you read it? I read it in its entirety. You would know that it's not okay. And especially for 14-year-olds, because think about this, because of the cutoff date with age, there are children that won't enter high school at 13 years old. And they will be only a few weeks out of just turning 14 when they go to read this book. It was explained to me this book is rated for 12-year-olds. What disgusted me the most is I bought this book for my daughter when she was a junior in high school because she was in honors. I was proud of her. I trusted y'all. I trusted the then superintendent, and I trust then the curriculum coordinator that nothing like this would be given to my 17-year-old daughter. And I bought it for her. You know how disgusted I felt after that when I read what was in this book? The message is completely overtaken by the ugliness. And do you think I want to be here asking y'all to do this? Because I know these are the types of things that most people don't want to deal with when we come to talk about these things. But when I ask, just take the book and make photocopies. Well, it's not feasible. So me standing here fighting for my kid is feasible for me, and I will do it. Like, it's just, what else do I have to give? What else are y'all gonna take? And how much more are we gonna be violated as parents? When it talks about religion, it talks about our divorce. Some parents are going through divorce. This book talks about when Vivian is married and having an affair with Grant, and they're sneaking around. More or less it's a booty call. They could be together. Do we want kids exposed to this? Do we want kids that have been sexually abused? Because I can tell you right now, my kids haven't been abused, but I can promise you, my daughter doesn't want to sit in a classroom and know that this content is in a book. And she's going to know it's there because there's the book, take it home. My kid's a good kid, she's going to read ahead. And it's there. Whether the teacher's talking about it or not, or the teacher's going to address it sensitively, it's not their place, and it's not y'all's place. This is a parent's place. And I'm going to ask y'all please to push this forward to the full board, because if you wait and it goes to committee, committee's not meeting this month, it'll be not until mid-January, then it won't go to the board until February, and at that point it'll be too late. So I'm asking y'all to please choose the kids today. Thank you.
Do I have a motion? Okay, I didn't ask, I'm sorry. Is there any other public comment? Ms. Gail, please state your name and address as you approach the board.
Fiona Moore in the 408 Community Drive, Thibodeau. And it's hard for us to hear back there, and I think I particularly missed the beginning of how Jamie said this came about. So I want to know, I don't think the three of us understand how that got to Jamie and her child. And I want an explanation of that. And of course, just to go into the record, that I think I totally agree with Jamie. That should not be, we've all discussed this, that should not be in our school systems, whatever kind of, unless there's something I'm not getting. It appears that they came some kind of way through a classroom or a teacher or something. I'm not sure. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that again. But, so if we could have that Jamie go forward.
We're gonna let Mr. Martin go ahead and.
Okay,
address.
that's fine.
This is a part of the 9th grade curriculum in all of our high schools. In fact, it's part of the Louisiana Department of Education's curriculum for all of 9th grade across Louisiana.
So that book with how everybody gets a copy of that book? Or
Yes, ma'am.
you order that? Well, I still have a problem with it. I don't care if it's part of the curriculum. I mean, it's just not appropriate for even a 9th grade. I just can't see it. I don't know why we have to, I just never really completely understand, other than reproductive matters or sexuality of how the science works. I'm not sure why we have to dwell on anything else. I never really understood that. Why do we have to discuss sex with our kids at school? That's a role of the parents. I don't get that. So I stand on the record of saying I do not think that should be in there. And I hear what you're saying. If that's our state curriculum, then let's think about where that goes. Okay, thank you very much.
Any further public comment?
Well, you need to get a motion. If you want to vote on it.
Well, we need a motion. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Well, with no further motion, the item does not get voted on, and it does not go further at this point. I do want to make a comment to you, Ms. Jamie. I would really recommend to you that you check out our policy IFA. There is a procedure in place in policy IFA at the end of the policy. It says procedure for handling criticism of material. It's already there in print. You can check it out. You can follow the procedure.
I
and we
did.
can
I
go
called
from
the
there.
administrator at the school. They sent me to Mr. Delcom. Mr. Delcom did not return my phone calls. After that, I came here with the policy. That day, Gwen asked me if Mr. Delcom called me back. That's why I
Public
spoke to
comment is
Mr. Delcom.
over. Public
Well,
comment
you're
is
making a
over.
comment that you obviously are educated to, Ms.
Are there
Adams.
any further business to be before this board today? With no further